Welcome to another episode of What Works for Me, a podcast highlighting best practices in Christian schools. This podcast is produced in partnership with Lutheran Education Association. To discover how LEA supports Christian teachers in schools, visit www.lea.org.
Welcome to What Works for Me. Today on the podcast, we have Jess Koch. She's the Childcare Director at St. John's Glendale, and I am privileged to have her on the podcast today because she has done something pretty unique. I'm fairly certain she has developed and created an entire religion curriculum, so we're going to talk about that today. Before we get into all the details of that, Jess, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your path through ministry so far.
Yeah. So I am Jess Koch, obviously. I have been Lutheran my entire life. My dad's a pastor, so I brag that I've not spent any time in public school really, other than like a month of kindergarten before he took a call to a school and church combo. Um, Went all the way through Concordia, Wisconsin, got my degree in secondary ed and English, was going to teach high school. Did that for a year, had more in common with the students than any of the other staff. Um, After my first call, we took a move to Madison, Wisconsin, where there wasn't a Lutheran school for me to work at. So I had started working in daycare because I had some background working in summer camp, kindergarten through second primarily. While I was doing that, I decided to go back and get my master's, which I did through Concordia, Portland, and I focused on early childhood with curriculum and instruction as kind of the major pathway that I took. Upon completing that, the pastor, Joel Brandt at the church we were attending, said, "Hey, I know a church with a daycare that's looking for a new director. Do you mind if I give them your name?" I said, "No, go ahead. I'm working in daycare right now. I've not really thought about being a director, but I just finished my master's. I'd always kind of thought about being a principal. We'll see what this stepping stone progresses to." They called me, I accepted. I was at Living Christ in Madison for about 5 years. And really, kind of the first thing that they asked me to do when I took the position was they're like, "Hey, we're a Lutheran church. We've got this daycare. We don't really have like actual Bible curriculum. Some of the teachers do Bible time, some of them don't. None of them are really Lutheran. There was one church member who kind of helped out. The director before me was not Lutheran, not called. So I was like, okay, I'll kind of poke around. I'll see what's out there. Um, the one teacher had been using some One in Christ things, but she had a lot of complaints that she didn't like about it. So she really just kind of was doing her own thing. And like I said, the majority of my staff, not churched, not Lutheran, which I think is very common in childcares. It's not like Lutheran schools where there's a great pool of callable teachers. Nobody's going to be callable to work with infants. They don't exist. And if they did, I would love to find them. um, so I was like, you know what? There's not anything out really that teaches how to bring Jesus to infants or 1-year-olds or 2-year-olds in a way that really focuses in on the attention span of like 2-minute sections. So I was like, you know what? I can't find it. I'm going to do it myself. So I started out and I compiled a list. It started initially as I compiled Bible stories and said, this is our theme for the week. And then we matched our chapel with the Bible stories. And then the other thing I was finding as I was trying to hire was that I had a lot of people wanting to come into the childcare field who were not lead qualified staff. Um, so they were out of high school, they had no real formal training. So I was like, we really need something that anybody can open up, read a little bit, and be able to implement in a classroom. So my Bible stories then turned into a full-fledged curriculum, not just religion. It's actually got breakdowns for literacy, science, social emotional development, gross motor, language arts, and sensory ideas for you to use for every day of the week for a full 36-week school year. And then I decided that still wasn't enough. And I wrote 4 different summer camp layouts. They're much less involved. It's basically just like, here are some theme ideas. And I wrote 4 of those to focus on different Bible stories. And I did it in a way that, obviously being a podcast, people can't see what I'm going to show. But I did it in a way, so like the 1-year-old curriculum, has everything lined out like a curriculum lesson plan book would. It's got what to do for Bible time, what to do for arts, literacy, science, and math. And I also then aligned it to the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards because the center I was working at in Madison, we were both Young Star certified and we were a licensed center. So we had some requirements that we had to meet in order to be able to stay open. So my curriculum had to have certain things in it for us to be able to utilize it. So the way that I wrote this, it could be used and meet those benchmarks, if not exceed them. So kind of like how people have to follow accreditation for Lutheran schools, this would hold up in that realm. At least that was the plan.
Okay, wow, Jess, this is a ton. This is a ton of stuff. So I will include a link to the website in the description of this. So if anybody listening, they can go click on that. I've poked around the website already myself. And how do you find the time? I understand making resources, right? That is something we all do as teachers, but to make an entire curriculum. So this is first through, or like 1-year-old through what?
Infant through fours.
Infant through fours. And then there's a different track for each of those. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. So we're looking at 4 tracks, 5 tracks.
4
Okay.
tracks and then 4 separate summer tracks.
4 tracks, 4 separate summer tracks, 36 weeks each. It's aligned to the early learning standards. How did you have the time to do all this when you were working full time? You have a family. Like, where did you find the time to do all this?
Um, I I just did it. There were some nights where I did not sleep as much as I probably should have. I will definitely have to throw out a huge shout out to the staff that I had at Living Christ at the time because they were a unique gem from what I've found in childcare. They did not call in very often. They were on time. They were able to allow me to be in my office and be working on things like this. Um, but I did spend a lot of time outside of work time putting this together. Like I said, I was an English major at Concordia, so writing and compiling things is something that comes very naturally to me. Um, and I also wrote the Bible stories that go with it. So there are Bible stories for each week that are only 7 sentences long. So again, short attention span, it kind of takes the whole Bible story and wraps it into a nice small um, really quick. And then the 4-year-old curriculum does also include links, or not links, where those Bible accounts are pulled from. So like there are actual the Bible verses, so you could go to the Bible and read it from the Bible because they could sit for a little bit longer. And that was not initial. That is something that I have developed since. This is technically the 3rd edition, I'm calling it. So this is not how it started. Um, I started with the 3s and the 4s, and then I added the 2s, the 1s, and the infants. So it was not like this was done overnight. It definitely took me a good year to get everything put together. Like I shared, my dad is a pastor. I had him review it. His associate pastor, Pastor Kochman, reviewed a lot of it for me. The kindergarten 1st grade teacher at his school at the time, Miss Bellotti, read over a lot of things. She's written devotionals for CPH and been on a few of the things there. She read over and helped me with it. So there are a lot of people that kind of took what I was doing and gave suggestions and helped me bring it to what it is today. And then my sister did a lot of the editing this round before I actually put it on the website. And I would be remiss to forget Chris Cody because he's the one who really kind of pushed me to actually get it to where it is. He voluntold me into presenting the curriculum at the Concordia Summit in August of last year. And he goes, "No, you need to share this." So that's really what got it to where it is now. Like it has been edited. I hired someone to get actual drawings to go along with it. So every Bible story has its own unique drawing. She actually went to Lutheran school with me and my siblings in Prairietown, Illinois, Molly Burns. So big thanks to her too for putting the time in and helping me with this.
The more you talk about it, the more impressive it is. I know you're like, oh well, it took like a year and it's been a work in progress. That's still crazy for a year with full-time job and everything else going on. It it's very commendable that you've put this together because it is a gap. CPH doesn't have anything for that yet. Now this is you can go buy this on a website. You get a paper copy. Has anybody from CPH been like, we'd really love to print this. You are Lutheran. You're in a Lutheran school. It's for Lutheran
They
people.
have not yet. If anyone's listening, I am interested. I would be open to having somebody else do the publishing part. Um, but yeah, I that is definitely a goal. When I started out with this, I had kind of joked to my dad. I was like, I always wanted to write and be a writer. Like maybe this is it. This is my in. And then when I got a contact from my website after the August event at Concordia, and or I called my dad. I was like, someone bought what I wrote. So I was kind of like, just like, no, this is a real thing. I did this.
Well, that's awesome. So let's break it down into a practical bit here. If people are listening and they work at a preschool or a daycare or childcare, and they don't like the resources they have, obviously they can go to the website, buy a book, buy all the books, right? I think it's like I think what was like $3.99 for the set. It wasn't crazy. I don't want to misquote your pricing. Am I close?
Not even gonna lie, I haven't looked at my
Okay.
pricing since when I set it up in August. Because I have had a lot of other things going on.
Imagine
But
that.
yeah,
You're
no,
you're busy.
I wanted it to be available.
Hmm.
I did wanna highlight that I did put a lot of work into it, but I also have run a preschool budget, and
Hmm.
I didn't wanna price it out of something
Yeah.
that Lutheran preschools could afford to have. And it's not like any other curriculum resource. It's not consumable. You're not going to have to buy something again every year. And actually, the way that I have it available is primarily as a PDF. If people want me to print it and ship it to them, I can, but obviously that's going to change the cost. But like,
Hmm.
I will, if you pay, I will send it to you in a PDF. You can make a copy, you can have it spiral bound, you can have it bound however you want, whatever's going to work for you. And I know some people just like to plan off their computer. You can just keep it as a PDF. I I would rather people have it and use it and get Jesus out to kids. That's really what it's about.
Well, I love that. I'm glad you're not putting it behind a big paywall. If any textbook publishers also listening, you guys can stop doing that too. Uh, so let's say somebody's listening and they're making stuff in their classroom and trying to add more faith into it. How did you go through that process of not even like making it? We've talked about that, but identifying that need and finding stuff that was gonna feed the kids in your care.
Yeah, so I really just kind of started with the list of the Bible stories. Like I said, I've very privileged, raised Lutheran. I could probably tell you all the books of the Bible by the time I was 2. That is not what I saw in the center that I worked
Mhm.
at. I actually had a very high number of families who were Indian, um, and they were coming in with no Bible knowledge whatsoever. So I really started with what are the 36 essential Bible stories that if these kids are going to leave with something, what do they need to hear? So that was really kind of where it started. And then so like the very first one that I had is like, well, what is the Bible? So in addition to the Bible accounts, which are ones just directly from the Bible, I wrote several what are ones that really kind of get into like Lutheranism for littles. So I've got what is the Bible? What is a creed? What is the Lord's Prayer? What is communion? What is a prophet? What is prayer? What is baptism? And I link those to Bible stories. So I've got the 2-year-old one in front of me. Week 15, they're going to read about Samuel. And then they're also going to read during their literacy time, what is a prophet? And then, like 5 weeks later, when they get to Jonah, we're going to read that again. And hopefully, they will remember part of what a prophet is because we already talked about it. Then, when we do creation, we're also going to read who is God because these are really big concepts that I tried to, as much as I could, boil down to a 7 sentence child level understanding of who is God or why do we do baptism? What is communion? Because, like my kids, they go to church with us, they see us go up to communion. They don't really know what that means. So, to give them a little piece of what that is, I found it really beneficial. And then I also left it, and I've explained to all of the staff that I've worked with at both of the centers now that I'm not expecting this to be utilized as like, you have to do exactly what I wrote in each of these little text blocks, and that's it. Because teachers have so much more to offer than what I can put into a 200, 300 page curriculum. The 2 and 3 year old teacher that I worked with at Living Christ, she would come to me and be like, if I do this instead, I was like, yes, that's fine. I'm just giving you suggestions and ideas. Like, if you can't think of anything, you at least have something. But if you have a better way to incorporate baptism than making a dove out of shaving cream, go for it. I just wanted people to have an essence of something so that if somebody walked into a classroom with no experience in childcare, they could at least get the essential idea from my curriculum to be able to take and bring Jesus, at least in that little way, into all of the parts of their day. So the Bible theme is woven into what you're doing in literacy, what you're doing in math, what you're doing in science, even what you're doing in gross motor. Like, the lesson for the Israelites wandering in the desert, we're playing follow the leader at gross motor time because the Israelites had to trust God and follow the pillar and follow Moses.
I love how you've integrated all of it and the care that's gone into creating it. I could talk to you for many more hours about this, but this one we try to keep to 10 or 15 minutes. So I just want to thank you for creating this and thank you for being on to talk about it. Any closing words before I pray for you?
No, like I said, just as long as this can help somebody, like, even we're teachers, we steal things. Even if you look at this and see an idea that you want to steal, go for it. I just really want it to be able to help other people in other schools.
Well, perfect. You guys heard that. If you're listening and you go by it and you want to, tweak it, tweak it. You have you have her permission. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Well, there we go.
Tweak away.
Well, let me pray for you and then we'll get going. Dear God, thank you for Jess. Thank you for the faith that you've put upon her heart and for the work that she's done and for the families that she's served. Thank you for her creativeness and her passion and her willingness to put a ton of work into making a curriculum that can bring your good grace to more families and to more kids. Please bless her as she continues on in her ministry and continue to pour your love out through her and her interactions. In your son's name we pray. Amen.